Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February customer webinar. Today, Jon Winters, product architect for BLOX Total CMS, will show off what's new and improved in that product. BLOX Total CMS is a powerful, all-in-one solution that allows you to simultaneously produce your print, web, mobile, and live e-editions products. We have lots of new functionality to discuss, but he's really going to zone in on some big changes to the page tracker tool that can help you improve efficiency and streamline your workflow. We also have Teresa Nelson, Director of Business Development, and Paige Ruba, Marketing Specialist, on hand. I'm Aaron Gillette, Marketing Director at townnews.com. We'll cover the formal presentation in about 30 minutes, after which we'll take questions. At any point during the presentation, you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll hold off on answering them until the end of the show. Take it away, Jon.
So here's our outline for today. We are going to primarily concentrate on new page tracker features. This is Page Tracker 090. That's part of the appliance release 2.11.0, and that is currently in use at 3 sites and is available for beta installation. I expect the general release to be any day now, so we're very close on it. Moving on to the actual first set of features, there's some changes to the way that Page Tracker views editions. And so what I've got up on the screen is a rather boring view of a page tracker edition. We now have something called galley view. And galley view really allows you to see the same kind of information. Here was the old view, here's the new view, but in a different structure so that you can tell really more at a glance what the status of all the pages are. One of the problems with the original view here is that it used up a lot of space and it was kind of inefficient with space. But this has a rectangular patch for each page. These four and these four happen to indicate that they are done. Their status color is green. These four here and these four in the back of the B section weren't even started. They are at a kind of a not done stage. So you do see a preview larger than in the old method. Get a page name right above it here, and then there's a series of icons that will be down here that include various things, and then we'll talk later about a page content type that can show up here as well. So this is called galley view of the editions. So we're going to go on to another view out here, and this is a wireframe view. And wireframe view is wonderful for a number of things. One, rather than just seeing the images of the articles like we have out here in the galley view, there's actually the slug information out here. Since I'm not actually demoing the software, but instead got these screen dumps, you can't see it, but if I were to hover over this in the actual wireframe view, what I would see would be information about the slug of that asset, the summary text or the first graph, the workflow, and other kinds of indicators on that story, so you could tell then, without having to open up the individual page, how close any of the individual stories are. So this is really going to be a time saver if you are trying to watch asset production during the production of the daily paper or weekly paper. Another part that's in here is we're showing cutouts. So these gray boxes here are actually ads, but they are a cutout, or this might be a title of the page. Let's see if we go back and see what that actually looks like. Yeah, so this actually says opinion up here. And that's not an asset, but it's a large area. And so using Town News' live e-edition, that will actually be a clickable area to read the extra text that's in there. All those gray zones are cutout assets. To switch back and forth between the 3 different views, up at the top, here it is in this view, here's in a magnified section of it, rather than just clicking on this, which will take you to the galley view. Let me back up here again. So in this case, this is the new galley view. If you want the wireframe view, you would click on that icon, hold the mouse button down, click wireframes, and that would put you in this wireframe view. Okay, also got a change here to some colors. So I'm going to back up a second. And when we out here, we basically had these 8 pages that are green that indicated done, and these 8 pages that were red that indicated not done. But in reality, pages are in a variety of statuses. And so we now have 5 different status colors based upon the Pages workflow, which is what turns on Page Tracker. And so here is an example of those 5 stages: a red for nothing done, an orange for something's been started, yellow in process, this light green might be proofing, and then this final green might be actually done. And so this compares to the old view where there was, this actually shows 3 of those status. So these 2 are red, this is the orange view, which means that it's been started, and then there's the done. And then if you had 4 statuses, then these are the 4 colors. So again, 2-color view, back to those 2 colors there. There's 5 colors, there's 3 colors, there's 4 colors. And those page colors, those status colors, they indicate all these backgrounds. So the square that's here would change that color, and then you get this lighter version. So if these pages had been in a different set of workflow conditions, they hadn't been, say, some of them proofed, you would see the background out here in a different color. I really like that feature. Okay, so in the last appliance release, which was the 2.10 release, we got something called page content types, and you would set those page content types in your site's naming convention in the content type panel there. And so this is a new content type column. And so this just shows some content types there. You can have more than one content type. This is nation world, this is government politics, this one doesn't have any. In this particular case, then, this is the galley view preview, and so the content type shows here. So not only can you see a view of what that page looks like, but you can also know what's on that page. Here, then, is a larger view of the wireframe view, and this is supposedly then a nation news or a national news page. Okay. Let's go back a second. Content types are driven by a couple different things. Technically, we haven't released the software to enable content types in Adobe InDesign, but they'll be driven by advertising systems if the advertising file that sends our information can provide that to us. Otherwise, there's a series of menus, dialogues that allow the user to set the content type, and then eventually you're going to be able to open the pages via the content type using the Asset Manager in InDesign. Those features are coming in the 5.13 release, which is underway right now. Okay, some other new features. This is when you are looking at the page view in Page Tracker. You can now sort by the slug. So out here, if you're using a slugging convention, you can see then this is first part of this slug for these stories, D, G, M, MS versus MA, O, ST. So those are all sorting by slug. In the past, we used to have this icon that said it looked like it was sorting by slug. It just didn't do it. We also have a new priority column out here. And the concept with Page Tracker and priority is that you could set a priority for assets, and all assets have the priority option. It shows up in the main window when you're editing an asset. And that could help the paginators decide which articles needed to be above the fold or which articles needed to be below the fold. And it's totally up to the site the way that priorities work, but we now can display them and we can also now sort them. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay. Previews. Now this is, I really cannot show you this feature. This is one of these things that when you have it, you'll understand the benefit of it pretty quickly. So in the past, when we made a preview of the page in Page Tracker, so if I go back here and show you what I'm talking about, yeah, like in this particular case, this is the galley view, but this is a preview. Or if you can kind of maybe sort of tell that there's just some folios here, but this is also a preview. Those previews were generated via a JPEG file sent out of Adobe InDesign. And the problem with those JPEG files is they were fixed size, fixed resolution, if you will. They were actually somewhat large in terms of the data that was being sent. And so if you had a document that had many pages in it, we would throw up a dialogue saying, do you really want to make the previews? Because this is going to take some time. Well, we're now going to make the previews for Page Tracker from a special PDF setting that we're including along with the plugin. And so this does a couple things for us. One, it actually tends to, in many cases, be a smaller file than the JPEG, but yet when you're viewing it online, you'd be able to see a higher quality version of it. It also works with document jumps. If you looked at the prior pages back here when I showed the galley view out here is missing the document jump section of this page, and that's because at the time these pages were made, those previews came from a JPEG preview, and JPEGs can't include the document jump parts. So moving forward with this new PDF for Page Tracker previews, we'll be able to see the document jump areas. It's also physically faster because it is less data, and then if you were doing something like a proof output or a final output, it will use the PDF that you're already making to send to Live editions to generate the previews. So because there's less time there to generate the preview, because we only need one PDF, and there's less data because we're not sending JPEG data, it decreases the amount of data being sent, and it goes quicker. And it also increases reliability. Some sites are troubled by their own advertising group and making some really, really large PDFs for ads to putting on the pages, and then when you're trying to finalize a page-to-page tracker to send it up for Live edition, it's just simply too much data. And so this is going to increase the reliability of those PDFs for the final page that's going to Live editions because there's less data being sent in that upload. Okay, so Budget View is part of Page Tracker. This is just a single article showing out here, actually it's a single image, sorry, showing out here in Page Tracker. And we've got a couple new columns of Page Tracker data that I wanted to talk about. One is we have this status column, and status is an ongoing thing. There's going to be a new icon coming out there later. Right now what we have is the red square indicating do not publish that you're used to in the regular Asset Manager, the pencil for it being checked out by you, the padlock if it's checked out by somebody else. So that's status. We also, and this is a great thing for people, this seems like not a big concept, but if you follow me in the workflow here, this is an awesome thing. Budget View now shows site tags. And what that means is that if you are using Budget View to check which articles have gone online, you can now look at all of the articles for a given date, publications, and you can figure out which ones have gone online. If there's a site tag and there isn't a do not publish, it's online. And in the past, you could guess the workflow, but you didn't really know whether or not it really had gone online because somebody may not have added the site tag. And now by showing the site tag, you really have a good indication of whether it's gone online, especially when we get the choice there for BLOX Syndication to show up. That's the next icon that's coming sometime later this year. Anyway, some sites publish to multiple websites, and so if you've got multiple websites, what will happen is it'll throw little parentheses out here with multiple site tags. I believe you can hover over it and it'll actually show you all the tags. Otherwise, it just shows you the first one attached. So this is going to be a great way to help close out the night at sites. They'll be able to open the budget view, see everything that was used. If it was used, has the little placed icon, and doesn't have a site tag, then you know you need to add the site tag to it. Really neat thing. I'm very happy about that. Okay, we've also got a new print budget. This is actually a feature that came from a request from a site. We do listen to y'all. We love to have feature requests. You can file those in a support ticket at support.calnews.com. The particular site in question wanted a budget view that looked more like what they used to take to their budget meetings when they printed it out. And so this is what we call the linear budget. And there's three basic rows of data there. First one is page, second one is the slug, there's then a out here, there's the workflows and the section tags that are applied to it, any print notes, that's what this edge here, that's a print note. And then if there is a article summary, it would appear, or if there's no article summary, then what you would have would be the first graph of the story. And I think for sites that have not yet made the jump to doing budgeting in our system, I think this might be something to make it a little easier to swallow. It just seems more like what they're used to seeing. To switch to that particular view, up where you go and choose the print version of the budget, you can just click on the printer icon, and that takes you to the print version of the budget, which I guess I don't have showing anymore. Otherwise, you can do the little drop down here and choose linear to get this particular view open. So I'm very pleased about that. Next thing, some changes to the assignment functions. Assignments is a kind of a subpart of Page Tracker where you can assign things to be created. Used to be that you could search for the assignment name. Now you can search by the print slug. And so this isn't a very exciting print slug in the assignment editor, but nonetheless, it is an option. Also, a bug fix was happened there. There's actually been a couple of these where when the assignment was created and the email information was sent, there was some incorrect or kind of truncated information. And we think that we now have the correct date, and I forget what was released in the last one. So if you had looked at assignments several versions ago and didn't like it, please try looking at them again. And if you have feature requests, again, file us a support ticket at support.townnews.com, and we would love to hear what you'd like added. I think there's like 6 more assignment features headed in the product roadmap. So there's stuff that's coming yet. So keep looking. It's getting better and better. Okay, many of our sites use NITF export out of BLOX Total CMS, and they're doing this to feed archive systems. And there's several different ways to get archives, to get the NITF file sent out. What we had in the past was triggered off of a various number of workflow issues. What we got in the last appliance update is the ability to have your output preferences trigger the NITF export of all the assets assigned to that page, all the things that showed up in the budget for that particular page. And it went to typically a separate NITF directory, and the files were named as the other files were, which is basically the UUID of the asset followed by XML. And that is still an option. If you are an administrator in BLOX Total CMS, and you go to Page Tracker, and you go to the little sprocket icon in Page Tracker, you can then go look at e-edition segmenting, you can then go to options, go to options. And you can check enable export. You can specify the folder name that you want to export the NITF files to, and make sure then that that folder exists. This would be inside of your TCMS data, and then local data feeds, and then the name of this folder needs to exist. And prior to this version, so in the last 2.10, there was no radio button. It was just always the normal export, the name with the UUID and placed in that above folder. You can now include this radio button instead, and that means if you're doing multiple publications, say you've got a publication that is TD, then the NITF files will be prefixed with TD underscore and then the UUID, and they're still placed in whatever folder. Or if you want to separate the NITF files, leaving their UUID as their names, but you want to separate them by publication, it will also then drop the UUID named XML files in NITF format inside of pubcode folders that you will need to make inside of here. Those names also need to be capitalized. So if you had, again, a publication called TD, then you would, inside of this folder, create a folder that was a capital T, capital D as its name. And that's where the XML will go. So some of our sites have been waiting for this quite a long time. This would be something typically that the larger BLOX Total CMS sites would be interested in. We'll just run through a couple more things here that have changed. Syndication tool got another update. Syndication tool is, again, something that you can use to pull your own assets from your own hosted BLOX site into BLOX Total CMS. And syndication tool is also used as the upcoming AP web feed replacement. And so there's continues to be improvements in there. There's more in the next version as well. The two that I decided to write down here is that if the asset had a table or the asset had a PDF as a child, those things now import. There was a bug and they didn't come in, but now those children import. Unfortunately, you still can't import a PDF or a table by themselves yet, but as a child, they will import. In the appliance administration, so this would be typically your IT staff that handles the appliance alert. We're now sending some email alerts to them, some stuff that they have been wanting. I'm going to pick the bottom one here first. If you're doing a snapshot, which is basically an exact copy of the appliance at a particular moment in time, this is very good for going back and grabbing a Adobe InDesign document that might have gotten corrupted, for example. If the snapshots were failing for some particular reason, there was really no indication of that. We now send alerts via an email to the admin of your appliances saying, hey, the snapshots failed. And so this is then a way to make sure that the snapshots are up and running. Also, if you're doing an update and managing multiple appliances, we now send emails out to those administrators when a reboot begins and also when the machine has actually relaunched and the upgrade is complete. This is, again, helpful for some of our larger sites that have a whole bunch of appliances. Actually, I'm going to back up here and just say something else about appliance update. We had some sites that had the beta updates turned on but not really realized what that meant. We typically release the appliance updates as beta first. We will frequently ask a site if they would like to install that beta early because it may have a feature that they requested. So some of the sites had left it on and had actually grabbed an update before it was ready. There's now kind of a more stringent process for vetting the fact that you want to have the beta updates. You want those indications. And so we still allow it. It's just that we want to make sure that you know all the options. It also reminds you that when you're doing appliance updates that you should update the secondary appliance first. Sites have continued to violate that rule. Okay, another thing that we've got going on here, we're going to cover several different updates of some prior features. We're just about on the home stretch of today's webinar. During the last update, we got the ability to see Agate content in the syndication tool, actually separated out by a little Agate subcategory. This is working pretty good. Unfortunately, the content for Agate has now changed slightly, and some of the headers for the Agate content aren't working as nice as we would like them. That's requiring some manual cleanup at the moment for the Agate. The regular articles and all the other categories are doing good. We're just having some sites having issues with Agate formatting. We will eventually be releasing some new rule sets for Agate. You're certainly welcome if you're really good with the rule set. Certainly welcome to go ahead and try doing that yourself. It's not that big of a deal. It's just that some of the headers are kind of jammed together. And the nice thing about Agate is the headers are always the same. So a couple lines in the rule set to separate those out, and it should be good. Another update from last time, we got the ability to broadcast to social media, which is Twitter and Facebook, directly out of BLOX Total CMS. This was kind of like the last thing that you could do in hosted blocks, but you could not do in BLOX Total CMS. Well, this is now out. It now works. Setting it up gave some of our initial adopters some real headaches. We now have a really nice document on how to set up social broadcast. If you go to our help site, which is help.bloxcms.com, we talked about that in one of our earlier webinars. In the middle of that area should be something, the middle of the BLOX Total CMS page should be an area there that you can click on to read the installation setup for social media broadcast. It's working really good for the people who've got it. We're also in the current version of the client plugin. This would be BLOX Total CMS client for Adobe InDesign and Adobe InCopy version 5.12.71 or newer. There is a function so that we can pull future updates of the client for Adobe InCopy and Adobe InDesign, what you might call the plugin for those two Adobe applications. You'll be able to pull them from the appliances themselves. And so this is just kind of an update. There are the steps there that you would actually go through. When that is released, we're going to do a separate webinar for the IT staff that handles your updates, or template masters, because the template masters will also be able to do this. We'll go through that particular process with them. But this is going to be nice because some of our sites have fallen way behind in their client updates, and then they want tech support for some issue that they encounter, and we can't help right away until they get updated on the appliance software. On the client software. Got two more things here to talk about. One is this client that we're talking about here. The final version of 5.12 ended up being 5.12.71. There is some renamed versions that go all the way up to .75 that are getting pushed to the appliance, but there's no functionality difference. It's just simply some numbering to get it pushed to the appliance. It was a huge release, 158 separate development issues in this 5.12 version. Some major features that we got is granular reflow. So if your story has been edited in the browser and it needs to reflow on the page, the granular reflow is a dialog that pops up that says, well, my headline's just fine. I just want the third paragraph. Can you just reflow the story? And that granular reflow allows that to happen. The NITF exporting that we talked about, that's a big feature of 5.12. We do have syndication tool support, so we can pull in AP feeds from the syndication tool directly into Adobe InDesign. We got full table asset support in 5.12. A lot of bug fixes. About 80-some different features or issues got fixed in 5.12. It's a very big release. You have to look at all of the release notes, and that is again on help.bloxcms.com. Finally, the next version that's coming out here is 5.13. We're still in development. It'll be, unlike the last release, it'll be a very small release. I think there's about 20 tickets in it. About 2/3 of those tickets have actually already been coded. About half of those have gone through QA. You can actually read the preliminary release notes. The software has not been sent to any site yet, but you can read the preliminary release notes again under BLOX CMS, help.bloxcms.com. Major features of it, the page content types that I mentioned before with the galley and the wireframe and the legacy edition view, full support for that. And then you need the 5.13 in order to create those previews of the page tracker of the pages. So that's the goal of 5.13, and we expect that in literally a couple weeks. I'm hoping by the maybe 2 weeks from today at most. There's just not that much left to do on that. The next appliance release is still in development. Most of the code is done. It's just in the QA process. This will get a beta release perhaps in another couple weeks as well. It's going to include the hosted CMS versions 1.24, 1.25. It's the BLOX Total CMS, but it's the same basic software. We get a domain cloning tool, and this would allow sites to move domains from one appliance group to another. We also get some update with Page Tracker that sends some more information to Live eEdition. I'm really looking forward to that. We're actually going to have a webinar on this 2.12 release at least the page tracker portions of it that go to live editions, and that will be coming up 2 months from now. I'll get that date, or Aaron will have that date for you here shortly. Also, some minor changes in the syndication tool coming up in the next version. So from today's webinar, things to take away from this, we have the wireframe view, so you get asset status, and you get to see where the segments are in live edition. The Gala view allows you to see, really at a glance, the entire publication. I only showed you like 16 pages there, but boy, a lot more can show. I just didn't have my screen set up to do that. We have this neat linear budget format. I think a lot of sites are going to like that. And then coming, it's actually in the software. There's just nowhere to install it from. We've got then the installer for the software built into this 5.12.71. So I am going to open up the line here. Aaron will open up the line for questions, and he'll continue on.
Thanks, John. Yeah, if you have any questions, please enter them into the questions chat box in GoToMeeting. We do have one quick question. A point of clarification, John. Is it Galley View or Gallery View?
It is Gallery.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So while we're waiting for questions to come in, I'll go through this. If you need any help, as John repeatedly mentioned, the help.bloxcms.com site is a great resource for documentation on all of our products. If you need support, call 800-293-9576 or put in a ticket at support.townnews.com. The partner community is a great place to swap ideas and learn more about our products at community.townnews.com. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We also have a number of newsletter and email blasts available, and you can sign up for those on our website by going to townnews.com and clicking the news menu item at the top of the page, and on that page, on the right-hand side of that page, you'll see our Stay Connected box there that allows you to sign up for our various email communiques. Okay, we do have a question that's come in. In the syndication tool, when we put in an article, we get every article that is attached. Is there a way to choose what child assets to pull in via syndication? We're pulling stories from sister papers, but don't want the 6 archive stories they attach to pull into TCMS.
I am not aware of that as being an option yet. I understand the issue. I'll write that down, see what we can't do in the future.
Okay. It looks like, let's see. I think there were a couple of other questions that came in during the course of the presentation that I believe were answered during the course of the presentation. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, so it looks like, unless anyone has any other questions, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Next month, on the first Thursday of March, and this year is going quickly already. The first Thursday of March, we will have a webinar, another webinar on our IQ program, so you can sign in for that if you're looking to learn how to make more money from your remnant advertising. And like John said, we'll have another TCMS webinar coming up in April. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.